Of all the rides I do during the year, these are my favorite. Hearing the hum of the studs on the glare ice, constantly looking for the best line forward, all while trying not to break through a weak spot in the ice. It's not the most strenuous ride physically, but it definitely keeps you on your toes mentally, and you'd be surprised at how much fun it is. The Minnehaha Creek starts at Lake Minnetonka in the western suburbs, meanders through South Minneapolis, and eventually dumps into the Mississippi. And if we're lucky, it freezes into the best bike path in Minneapolis. Today I started near the eastern end of the creek. The water coming out of the lakes must still be relatively warm because the creek was completely open downstream of Lake Hiawatha. But just upstream from Lake Nokomis, I found what I was looking for. Long stretches of solid ice. This ride isn't for everyone. The thought of falling into freezing cold water when it's 10 degrees outside isn't something everyone's willing to risk. But even with the possibility of getting wet, for me, it's worth it. I just really enjoy doing these rides. You're usually out of the wind, below any traffic, and instead of going over bridges, you go under them. It gives me a different perspective from the paved bike paths, and it lets me cut through neighborhoods in a way I'd never be able to any other time of the year. One of the reasons I like riding this end of the creek is that I'm never far from a bike shop, coffee shop, restaurant, or brewery in case I need to warm up. Once you get out into suburbia, those emergency warm-up spots are harder to get to. I also know this part of the creek better than further west. The creek has public access along its entirety while it's in Minneapolis. But once you get into the burbs, the property lines go right down to the banks. And the people in those big-ass houses along the creek don't always appreciate you walking through their yards to get around a section of open water. I'm riding the fat bike I designed and built back in 2015. This is my third frame, and the oldest frame that I'm still currently riding. For this ride, it's set up with 27.5 by 2.6 Ice Biker Pro tires from Schwalbe. These things are the best. They have more bite than any other studded tire I've ever ridden. And because it's going to be in the teens all day today, I'm using my Bar Mitts. One of the most overlooked components for a winter bike is a dropper post. Whether it's getting back on the pedals on glare ice or in deep snow, having a dropper post is one of the best upgrades I've made to my fat bike. I also appreciate being able to lower my center of gravity and get my feet closer to the ground when the ice gets really slick. For the most part, the creek is relatively shallow, but there are spots where it can get deep. It obviously depends on how high the creek is running, but spots where I wouldn't be able to touch are extremely rare. And in my experience, the deep spots aren't typically the bad spots. Most of the time when the ice is open or thin, it's where some other water source drains into the creek, or where the creek is really shallow, like just a couple inches deep, or where it's especially rocky and there are rapids. I've been riding the creek for 15 years now, and I feel I'm pretty good at reading the ice. Or at least as good as you can be, because you never really know. In all those years, I've never broken through beyond the top of my boot. I think I ended up with a slightly damp sock once a few years ago. Granted, I've been pretty lucky. I've been on rides where buddies have ended up really wet. One thing that's reassuring to see is tracks from walkers, skaters, or other bikers. It definitely adds a sense of security when you aren't the first one out on the ice. If there aren't other tracks, the next best thing is being able to see cracks in the ice. It might sound weird that seeing cracks is good, but they're typically just stress fractures, and the ice is still structurally sound. It's often hard to know how thick the ice is, and when the ice is clear and you can see a crack that's 4 or 5 inches deep, you know that ice is at least that thick and you're good to go. This bridge is one of my favorite spots for a beer stop. It's got these ledges on the inside that you can lean your bike up against and put your beer down on, and it doesn't have a whole lot of traffic noise. But I didn't bring any beers with me today, so I just kept going. Some years the creek gets snow covered and a path gets packed in, but the cold temps with no snow we've been getting lately are my favorite. The glare ice is just so much fun, and a lot faster than riding through the snow. It can be a bit unnerving riding on completely clear ice, but that kind of adds to the fun and excitement. On more than one occasion today, I looked down to see a fish swimming below me, which was pretty wild. I think another reason I enjoy these rides so much is the fact that conditions have to be just right for it to be rideable. Conditions change day to day, sometimes even hour by hour. And it's not always easy to predict if it'll be good or not by looking at the weather. Some years we get lots of days to ride the creek, other years it's just a few. So when the conditions are right, I kind of just have to jump at the opportunity. So here's my turnaround point for today, right at the Minneapolis border. I could have kept going if I had more time, and the creek looked good up ahead, but I wanted to get home before dark. On the way back to where I started, I took pavement and the dirt trails along the creek so I could make better time and catch the sunset over Lake Nokomis. I've been doing more ride videos lately because I'm trying to get better at using the action camera, but I do have a couple smaller frame building projects coming up, so I'll be posting those videos over the next few weeks. And there it is, in my opinion, the most fun you can have riding a bike across Minneapolis. If you haven't watched my other videos, go check them out. Thanks for watching, take care, see you next time.